Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing a book review of a book that I read in the booktubeathon, and that is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I'm going to try and make this as spoiler free as possible so anyone can watch this. If you haven't read Shadow and Bone, if you have read it, if you have no desire to read it, anyone can watch this at all. There will be no spoilers. It's spoiler free territory round here. If you don't know what Shadow and Bone was all about, it's about the Shadowfold, which is destroying the nation of Ravka. And this story follows our protagonist in the town of Ravina. I can't pronounce the name. She is called Elena and she is an orphan. Elena discovers that she has a very unique power. She has a power that no one else has seen for a very long time, and they believe that she is the key to stopping the Shadowfold from coming and destroying their beloved nation that they love and they want to stay in, which is fair enough. I actually did try and read this. I think it was in December. I think it was around Christmas, and I actually put this on hold because I was not in the mood for fantasy at all. I couldn't get into it, I couldn't gel with it, but I have reread it in the booktubeathon and I thoroughly enjoyed this. In fact, I think it was one of my favourites. It really surprised me, and it just goes to show that if you're not in the mood for a genre or for something in general, you just need to wait for the time that you're going to be in the mood for it. If you're not in the mood for it now, doesn't mean that it's a bad book or that you're not going to like it again when you pick it back up. So I gave this somewhere between a 3.75 and a 4 on Goodreads for the following reasons. One of the reasons why I like this book so much is because of Elena, the main character, as I just said. She is so underestimated. Like, she has no confidence in herself either. She might have a power, but unfortunately she can't really control it at this precise minute, so she has to have help from everybody, and everyone underestimates her and wonders if she actually is the key to, you know, get rid of the Shadowfold and make it to stop destroying the nation. See how I'm avoiding using the nation's name because I don't know how to pronounce it. However, as we're talking about characters, I feel like some of them are kind of introduced without any backstory, and this is one of the reasons why I felt like I needed to put it down the first time. I felt like I was jumping into something that already had like 5 books and we knew all the characters' names already, so she'd like introduce somebody to the story and it'd be like, who is this? Where did they come from? Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe? Just get given a name and it's like, oh, they exist. That means that it's hard to get a connection with the characters and it's hard to picture them, and it's hard to picture the whole novel, which I found that had a massive knock-on effect to my reading experience. Because there were so many characters in this book, I found it hard to pinpoint one, although I did really like Elena because she's the main character and there was more effort with her. But I feel like with all the other characters I was like, meh, because they were introduced without any backstory. I have read Leigh Bardugo's novel Wonder Woman, which is part of the DC Icon series, and that is the polar opposite to this. Like, the characters are really well written in that book, maybe because they've already written for her and she just has to recite them. This seems to be like waves apart from Wonder Woman, and we'll see how much her writing improves as these books go on. The words in italics really confused me because they were different words that I didn't understand. I don't even think they were English. Maybe they were different languages, and I have no problem with authors and writers putting other words from different languages in their book if it's relevant and stuff. Like, I feel like it is relevant here because we're looking at a fantasy world that's got a whole nation of people. I would have just loved for a glossary, although she did briefly mention what the definition was after it was first used. I kept forgetting what it was called and I had to flick back to wherever it was and find where it was. And this is a booktubeathon, so I was like, oh, I need to read, but like I was trying to figure out what that meant. And I really would appreciate if there was a glossary in this and she'd have created like a glossary of words, even if there was like 5 words. I don't think there's very many of them, which is why it wasn't worth deducting any stars for it, I don't think. But it did affect my overall reading experience because I really wanted the glossary to happen. I kept flicking to the back like, are you sure there isn't a glossary? I found a word, an example of one of these italic words just to back up my point, and it's kefta. And I have no idea still what that means. If there was a glossary, I would be able to look it up. I know that she explains them, but she only explains them once. And I have a terrible memory. This book for me had a theme of personal strength, and because Elena has this really original power and she doesn't know how to control it, she's relying on herself and her personal strength. I feel like this novel is all about self-discovery and self-power and realising how much power you have. A bit like Elsa, but she's not Elsa. It's not like cold, it's just light. I liked that element of this. I find that I like novels of fantasy where there's like an undertone of like something really deep, like in Scythe it's like morality and like what it means to be human. And this, it was like the undertone of having like personal strength and perseverance. Just because you aren't perfect from the get-go does not mean that you're not going to be perfect by the end. It was kind of difficult to differentiate who was speaking and who wasn't, because a lot of the time Leigh Bardugo would put like the speech not with the person's name afterwards, if that makes sense. Like, he said, she said, Donna said, Fred said. It would just be like, we need to go to the shop. I'm like, Biff stuttered, but it's like Chip talking, if that makes sense. Like, it was really hard to keep up with that unless I was 100% paying attention, because it was just really difficult, and I found that a really weird way to lay out, but it was fine. This unfortunately suffered to a fantasy trope that I just don't like. I vom every single time, and this does have a miniature love triangle in it. This book did make me cry at the end because it was really cute between the people I actually ship in the love triangle, but I feel like the third party in most fantasy love triangles are just like, get out of here, move along. I've read so much fantasy this week and just in general over the last few months, and there is a love triangle in almost every single one of them that isn't needed to the plot at all. There is one aspect of this book that I really did like. It comes with a map, people. It comes with a map. It has a very big map of Ravka, don't know how to pronounce it still. Every time a new location was mentioned that I saw on the map at the beginning, I instantly flicked back. If you're gonna have a fantasy novel like this and build a fantasy world, you're gonna want to put a map in. In conclusion, I did enjoy this book. I gave it in between a 3.75 and a 4 on Goodreads. I did really enjoy this, but it wasn't like an all-time fave. A lot of people do hype Leigh Bardugo up quite a lot in my head, and I think that's why it failed the first time, because the Leigh Bardugo hype was real in December. Now that it's kind of died down because she's on hiatus right now writing a book, I could read this without feeling like, oh my god, it's gonna be amazing that Leigh Bardugo wrote this, and it's gonna be fucking amazing. Pretty sure it's one of Leigh Bardugo's first books, so we can kind of leave room for improvement, and I can confidently state that in Wonder Woman and possibly her later books that she has really improved. She is a good writer, and you can see it in the rubble of this. So there we have it. There is my kind of review of Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which I read for my first book in the Booktubeathon 2018. I will leave the playlist to all my vlogs for that week in the description box below. Sorry if this was kind of short. I was all wrapped up in the Booktubeathon. This was my first book. I was so hyped because it was my first ever Booktubeathon, and I didn't make as many notes as I should have or thought I was going to, but these are the initial thoughts that I had while reading Shadow and Bone. If you're looking forward to reading this, you should be, because it is really good, but don't hype it up too much because it is, I think, early Leigh Bardugo, and it isn't the greatest, but I'm sure as we go on with the Grishaverse and the Grisha series, it will definitely get better. Thank you so much for watching my review of Shadow and Bone. Please give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe. I make a booktube video here on Booktube every Tuesday. I also have a main channel where I upload every Monday for weekly vlogs and Wednesday for just lifestyle content. If you're interested in that, a link will be down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week or whenever I upload next. See you next week. Bye guys!
You've got a face for a smile, you know. A shame you're wasted when you're breaking me slowly. But I've got a world of chances.